Well, folks, we got a great mask-off moment from the Israelis yesterday, and I have to repeat this every day. When I attack the Israelis, I'm not saying that Hamas are good guys, so don't play that game. What I've been trying to do this week has been a response to everything I see on TV, particularly places like Fox News, that says, "Oh, there's these wonderful angels called the Israeli government, and they're just trying to defend themselves. And every AS they have on, they say, do you think Israel has a right to exist? And it's a yes or no question. And if you say yes, they have a right to exist, then that means you wipe Gaza off the map. If you don't want to wipe Gaza off the map, well, then obviously you want to kill all Jews because you think that Hitler didn't go far enough." This is the game we've been playing, and I don't want to play anymore. I've gone full Donnie Wahlberg at the end of Saw 4, was it? Yeah, Saw 4. I've been watching EFAP go through the Saw movies, unrelated, but it's been quite funny. Unlike the situation um, in Israel with this war between them and Hamas, which has expanded to a war between Israel and all of the people of Hamas, according to the Israeli president Isaac Herzog. Yesterday, he gave a press conference in which he stated that this is a myth that there are innocent civilians in Gaza. There are no innocents. They are complicit in Hamas's actions, and his evidence for this is that that Hamas still exists. He's saying, well, if anyone in Gaza didn't agree with Hamas, they would rise up and they would get rid of Hamas, which is classic neocon logic. Neocons, which, of course, if you talk about revolution in a Western country or in Israel itself, they, of course, say, oh my gosh, that's terrible, that's illegitimate, that's illegal, you can't overthrow the government. No, the government is sacred, more sacred than your religion, more sacred than your family. It is the most important thing in the world, the sanctity of our laws. Remember, the insurrection in the Capitol was so bad because we're told those people were trying to overthrow our government. Yet that is what Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel, and most American Zionists demand the people of Gaza do to their government. A government which they have not even had the very limited privilege of electing, even in some kind of sham election. Hamas was imposed upon Gaza by the Israelis. The Israelis worked long and hard to put Hamas in power in Gaza, and once they got Hamas into power, they have let them stay there, and they have made sure that their power could not be challenged. Why, you ask? Well, it's because Hamas is a much better foil for the Israelis than if they had some, reasonable guy in a suit who said, hey, I just kind of want food and water and equal rights for my people. So you Israelis, you're really the bad guys here, and we're not doing anything wrong. We just want to have our right to exist. Throw it right back in their faces. No, instead, Israel would much rather have these Hamas guys running around with AKs in flip-flops and rags wrapped around their heads, because they're much scarier, and everyone can agree that Hamas is spooky scary, and that you don't want them in charge. And so why do I put the Netanyahu himself has said as much back in 2019. I believe Haaretz recently republished an article about what he said, and this was the logic behind it. But anyway, you don't even need that, because Israel, before Hamas was in power, Israel was working with Hamas, Mossad was, to try and undermine the what was the ruling faction in Gaza, was Fatah at the time, and they're still the ruling faction in the West Bank. And so they would do things like give Hamas certain privileges, put restrictions on Fatah that were not on Hamas. And then it culminated in an election, a real election, way back in 2006, when a majority of the Gaza population hadn't even been born yet, because that was 17 years ago, and almost 18 years. A majority of Gaza's population is estimated to be under 18. So not only could they not vote back then, a majority of Gazans, they were not even born when Hamas was put in power. Okay? Nevertheless, when this election took place, which was, the only people who could have voted in it are now in their mid-30s, okay? So you have a minority of the country who's even, or of the territory, whatever, who was even old enough to have participated in an election, period. And of those people, only 44% of them voted for Hamas. They did not win a majority. They're like Bill Clinton, they never won a majority. They won 44% once, and Fatah won 42% or something, I think, and then there were some independents and what have you. So they had to form a coalition. And then there was a coup d'etat by Hamas, which, what's his name referred to? Isaac Herzog, which he referred to. He said, oh, well, this is a coup government. Hamas isn't legitimate. It's like, okay, they're not legitimate, but you've recognized them for 17 years. You haven't done anything to undermine them like you undermined the previous regime. You haven't made Hamas hold any new elections. You haven't done that. You were able to somehow put up and hold an election for Hamas to get into power, but you've never been able to hold an election or even consider trying to have an election in Gaza to challenge Hamas's power, because it's much more convenient if you can lump in these 2 million people, including 1 million minors, and lump them in with Hamas, say they're all just as bad, and that there are no innocents, so that way you can bomb them indiscriminately. And when there are inevitably civilian casualties, when there are dead children, the likes of which Netanyahu liked to share, a couple of dead Israeli children, which is very sad. It's sad when any child dies. But the holier-than-thou attitude is why I think so many people across the world have come to hate Israel. Now, I don't hate them. I think I've been able to maintain a lot of objectivity. I never hated either side, even when I was, much more on the pro-Israel side, because that is the default here in America. Back when I thought the Israelis could do no wrong, I didn't hate the Palestinians. I just knew nothing about them. So this press conference, I believe what Isaac Herzog was referring to was that Israel's been dropping leaflets in northern Gaza, telling everyone in North Gaza, which Gaza's very small, it is 141 square miles, okay? And that is 2 million people crammed into that tiny little area. He has told 1 million of them in the north to just migrate south. Just leave your house and go to the south to be safe, because we're going to level the north half. And obviously, that's not really feasible. You're not going to be able to get 1 million people out. And if so, even if they get out of their houses, where are they going to go? Are they just going to stand outside, wait for you to drop your bombs, and then they can go home to their destroyed homes? It's not like they can go to Egypt. And so it is recognized that you're not going to be able to get these 1 million people out. And so inevitably, a lot of them will be killed in the bombing. And so I think he was asked by a reporter to address, hey, killing innocent civilians, isn't this a bad thing? And that's when he went off on his tirade about there are no innocent civilians. They're all guilty. Every man, woman, and child. That 5-year-old pulled out from under the rubble. He could have risen up to stop Hamas. He chose not to. He made his decision. So I'm not going to sit here and be lectured by any of these people. I have these Republican politicians, people like Ron DeSantis, who, I know, not that I would ever want a government job, but what I've said on this channel this week is enough to get me banned from, a Florida government job for life. It's a good thing I didn't want to be a school teacher or anything like that, because DeSantis would have my head. Because this is one issue where you are not allowed to disagree. This is the vaccine for Republicans. Democrats, they're not allowed to question Daddy Pfizer. Republicans, they're not allowed to question Daddy Netanyahu or Herzog. You see, it's not as bad when Israel kills Palestinian babies, because you see, they do it with bombs. They're not doing it to their face. Hamas is bad. I mean, it's real. I guess that is. That is the justification. It's all about how it makes you feel. It's not the act itself. It's how you did it. It's the fact that they shot babies instead of bombing them, because blowing them to bits is much. That's a lot more less savage. We'll put it that way. It's a lot easier to remote control a drone and drop a missile than look a baby in the eye and kill it. And that's why Israelis are superior. They are the better people. I mean, who can make these arguments with a straight face? When that is the level that you have to get down on, basically, that's just not a debate I want to have any part of. Which baby murderer is more moral? Enough for today. I will see you folks back here tomorrow.